"Give me the full 11 inches, the rancher froze at the virgin bride's request. It was the kind of afternoon where the sun baked everything it touched. The wood of the old station, the golden fields that stretched for miles, even the air felt heavy and slow. He rode in quietly, his horse's hooves kicking up small puffs of dust along the railway line. The man was built like the land, rough, steady, and stubbornly silent. A rancher who'd seen more loss than most men could bear. He wasn't expecting to see her there. The woman stood barefoot on the porch, her torn white dress fluttering against the wind, holding it close as if to protect what was left of her dignity. Her eyes, fierce but frightened, locked on him the moment he pulled the reins. She wasn't supposed to be there. No one was. He tipped his hat slightly. "Ma'am, you lost." Her lips trembled. "I was told this was the train station to Red Hollow. But there hasn't been a train all day." He looked down the endless tracks, then back at her. "Ain't been a train through here in 2 years." For a second, neither spoke. The wind whistled through the dry grass. She held her dress tighter, and he noticed the bruises on her arms, faint but there. He dismounted slowly. "You hungry?" Her eyes softened a little, suspicious but hopeful. "Maybe." "Come on then," he said, nodding toward his horse. "It's a bit of a ride, but you'll get a meal and a roof before sundown." She hesitated. "Why help me?" "'Cause out here," he said, adjusting his red bandana, "people either help each other, or bury each other." And with that, she followed him. The sun burned low as they rode across the plains. She said her name was Clara. She spoke softly, as though afraid the wind might carry her secrets away. He didn't ask much, just listened. Every once in a while, he'd glance at her, the way a man looks at a storm he doesn't understand but can't ignore. When they reached the ranch, he handed her a blanket. "You can wash up inside. I'll get the fire going." She looked around. The place was quiet. Too quiet. "You live here alone?" He nodded. "Used to be more of us." "What happened?" she asked. He poked the fire, his eyes distant. "Life." Something in the way he said it made her stop asking. That night, she sat by the fire wearing one of his old shirts, her hair damp from washing. He poured her coffee, strong, black, and bitter, and told her about the drought, the cattle rustlers, and how the land never forgives the weak. She listened, nodding, the flames reflecting in her eyes. And then, quietly, she said, "You ever been married?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Once." She smiled faintly. "Me too. Or, I was supposed to be. But the man I was promised to." She stopped, swallowing hard. "He hurt you?" he asked softly. Her silence said enough. When she finally spoke again, her voice shook. "He told me I wasn't worth a dime, that no man would ever want me because I was still untouched." The rancher's jaw tightened. She stared at him, almost challenging. "So tell me, cowboy, what does a man do with a woman who doesn't even know what love feels like?" He didn't answer. He just stood, the firelight tracing the edge of his hat brim. And before walking away to his room, she heard him mutter, "Maybe teach her what it really means." But that night, she couldn't sleep. Not because she was afraid, but because for the first time in years, she felt something dangerous. Trust. As the wind howled outside, she whispered into the dark, "What if he's the one?" And somewhere down the hall, the rancher sat awake too, wondering the exact same thing. Morning came hot and golden. She found him by the fence line, working with his gloves off, measuring the distance between posts. She walked barefoot through the dirt, the hem of her dress brushing against the dry grass. He looked up when he heard her. "You shouldn't walk out here barefoot. The ground bites." She smiled softly. "I'll take my chances." She stood beside him, watching as he stretched a measuring tape between the posts. "What are you doing?" "Trying to fix this fence," he said. "It needs to be just right." "How right?" she teased. He looked at her, a slow grin forming under his hat. "Exactly 11 inches apart." Her eyes sparkled mischievously. 11 inches, huh? He froze for a second, the way a man does when a woman's tone means something more than her words. She tilted her head, smiling shyly but not backing down. "So tell me, cowboy, you always this precise about measurements?" He chuckled low. "Only when it matters." The air between them thickened. But then she looked away, her smile fading. "Back home, They used to laugh at me for being too shy. Said I didn't know what a real man was. He wiped sweat from his brow. They were wrong. Her voice softened. How would you know? He took a step closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. Because any man who made you feel less than you are, wasn't a real man to begin with. Her eyes welled up, and before she could stop herself, she whispered, then tell me, what does a real man do when a woman says she wants to learn everything, even the things she's never dared to ask? He didn't move. His hand rested gently on the fence, inches away from hers. You sure you're ready for that? He asked. Her voice trembled. I'm sure. But, you'll have to be patient with me. He smiled, barely. Darling, patience is the only thing I got left. The wind picked up, blowing her hair across her face, and in that quiet moment, everything around them disappeared. The dust, the fences, the long years of loneliness. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. And then she said the words that stopped him cold. Give me the full 11 inches. His hand froze midair. What? He whispered. She smiled shyly. That's what you said, right? It needs to be exact. He exhaled, a mix of relief and confusion crossing his face. And maybe, just maybe, something else. She turned, walking back toward the barn, her laugh soft and teasing. You look like you saw a ghost, cowboy. He grinned, shaking his head. No, ma'am, just realized I might be in trouble. That night, as the sun fell behind the fields, he sat on the porch watching her. She moved through the golden light like she belonged there. But he couldn't shake the feeling that her past, whatever she was running from, wasn't done with her yet. Because sometimes, the past doesn't need a map to find you. And when it does, it always comes riding fast. The night rolled in quietly, with a sky full of stars so clear it almost looked painted. The wind carried the sound of the barn door creaking and the low murmur of crickets. Inside the ranch house, Clara couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, calm, unreadable, but somehow comforting. She rose from the bed, the oversized shirt brushing against her knees, and stepped out onto the porch. The moonlight made everything look softer. The fences, the dry land, even the man standing by the barn, working alone at this hour. He was repairing the saddle strap, his hand steady, focused. There was something about the way he moved. Quiet strength, no wasted motion, no arrogance. You ever rest, cowboy? She asked softly. He didn't look up right away. Rest don't build fences, ma'am. She smiled faintly and walked closer. You always this serious? He gave her a side glance. Only when I got company worth being serious for. Her heart fluttered, just a little. She leaned against the barn post, watching him. You know, I didn't tell you everything yesterday. He stopped working. Didn't expect you to. I was supposed to marry a man in Red Hollow. My father arranged it. He said the man had land, money, and a good name. She paused. But when I got there, I found out he also had a temper. And a wife. One he never mentioned. He looked up slowly, his jaw tightening. You ran. I ran, she whispered. Got on a train going anywhere but there. It broke down near the tracks where you found me. The cowboy sighed, nodding once. Makes sense now. What does? The fear in your eyes when I first saw you. She laughed softly, though it didn't reach her eyes. Guess I'm not good at hiding things. He stood, putting the tools aside. You don't have to hide here. For a moment, they just stood there, the silence between them thick but not uncomfortable. Then she asked quietly, what about you? You said you used to be married. What happened? He hesitated, then looked out toward the horizon. Her name was June, sweetest soul this land ever saw. But she got sick, couldn't afford the doctor. By the time I sold half the ranch to pay for one, it was too late. Clara lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. He nodded. Ain't your fault. But since then, I stopped waiting for life to give me anything worth keeping. Clara took a slow breath. Maybe life's giving you something now. He looked at her then. Really looked. You sure about that? Not yet, she said. But maybe I will be. The next morning, the ranch buzzed with quiet life. The sun rose red and gold, casting long shadows across the open fields. He showed her how to pour feed for the horses, how to tie a knot, how to listen for rattlesnakes in the grass before stepping. "You're teaching me like you plan to keep me here," she teased. He gave a small grin. "You planning to leave?" "I don't know," she said, tossing feed into a trough. "For the first time in years, I don't feel like running." He didn't reply, but there was a warmth in his eyes that didn't need words. By noon, the sun was brutal. She wore one of his old shirts tied at the waist, the sleeves rolled up. He caught himself watching her, the way her hair stuck to her neck, the determination in her movements. She wasn't fragile, she was fire learning to burn again. They worked side by side until she finally stopped and said, "I think I earned something cold to drink." He chuckled. "You earned more than that." Inside, she poured water into 2 tin cups. He leaned against the doorway, hat tilted, watching her move like she belonged there forever. "You look like you're thinking something," she said, handing him the cup. He smiled faintly, just wondering how a runaway bride ends up fixing fences in the middle of nowhere. She looked up at him, eyes gleaming. "Maybe I'm waiting for something worth staying for." He didn't blink. "And if you find it, then I stop running," she said softly. They stood there for a moment, the sound of wind, the horse neighing outside, and their heartbeats filling the silence. But then, suddenly, the calm shattered. A rider appeared in the distance, a dark figure cutting across the fields, dust rising behind him. The cowboy's eyes narrowed. "You expecting company?" She froze. "No." The rider drew closer, fast and reckless. The rancher's hand went to his revolver instinctively. When the man finally stopped a few feet away, he spat the dust from his mouth and growled, "I'm looking for a woman. About her height, brown hair. Came through this way." The rancher's voice was calm but firm. "Ain't seen anyone like that." The stranger's eyes slid past him, to Clara. "You lying, cowboy." The rancher stepped forward, hand hovering near his holster. "I said, you got the wrong place." The man sneered. "You sure? 'Cause my fiancée here has a habit of running when she's scared." Clara's face drained of color. "Tom," she whispered. The rancher stiffened. "This him?" She nodded, barely breathing. Tom dismounted, dusting his coat. "You didn't think I'd let you walk away, did you, Clara? After all the trouble I went through to buy you that dress?" The rancher stepped between them. "She don't belong to you." Tom laughed, mean and sharp. "She don't belong to you either." For a long second, the world went quiet, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, quick as lightning, Tom's hand went to his belt, but the rancher was faster. His revolver came up, steady and cold. "Don't," the cowboy warned. Tom froze, a bead of sweat sliding down his temple. "She came here on her own," the rancher said slowly. "And she leaves when she wants. Not before." Clara stepped closer, voice trembling but firm. "He's right, Tom. I'm done running from you." The stranger glared at her, eyes full of rage, but something in the cowboy's steady aim made him think twice. He spat on the dirt, mounted his horse, and rode off, the dust swallowing him whole. The cowboy lowered his gun, exhaling. Clara looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "You didn't have to do that for me." He holstered the weapon. "Wasn't for you. It was for me. I'm tired of watching good people get hurt." She smiled weakly. "So what happens now?" He looked out toward the horizon, where the sun bled orange into the sky. "Now, we find out what 11 inches of distance really means." She frowned, half smiling. "You mean the fence?" He looked back at her, eyes soft but steady. "No, Clara, I mean the space between two hearts trying to meet halfway." She stood there, heart pounding, realizing maybe, just maybe, she'd already crossed that line. But as the sky darkened and the wind picked up again, the rancher couldn't shake one thought: Tom would be back. And next time, he wouldn't be alone. The third morning came heavy with silence. The sky over the ranch was painted in deep copper and gray, a warning more than a sunrise. The wind had changed overnight. It carried a strange stillness, the kind that always came before trouble. Clara stood by the window, watching the horizon stretch into forever. The cowboy, Cole, as she had finally learned his name, was out near the barn, tightening the fence wire. She had barely slept, her mind chasing every echo of yesterday's confrontation. Tom's face still haunted her. His voice, sharp and cruel, still echoed in her ears. Cole walked back to the porch, dust on his boots, his hat low against the sun. You should pack a small bag, he said quietly. She frowned. You think he'll come back? I know he will, he said. Men like him don't take no for an answer. She swallowed hard. Then I'll stay. I'm tired of running, Cole. He looked at her for a long moment. There was no fear in her eyes, only fire. Then we stand our ground, he said finally. They worked through the day preparing the ranch, locking shutters, checking ammunition, moving the horses to the far pen. By noon, the air shimmered with heat and tension. Cole taught her how to hold a rifle, his hands guiding hers carefully. You're shaking, he murmured. She laughed nervously. I've never even held one before. Then start now, he said, voice calm and steady. You aim like this, breathe slow. Don't pull the trigger, squeeze it. Let the gun surprise you. She followed his every word. The gun kicked back in her hands, but she hit the target post dead center. Cole smiled faintly. You're a natural. Clara looked at him, breathless. Or maybe I just had a good teacher. He tipped his hat, trying to hide the smile that crept across his face. But beneath that quiet moment, both of them knew it wouldn't last long. That night, the ranch fell into darkness. Only the lantern on the porch flickered weakly against the wind. Cole sat in his chair, rifle across his lap, listening. Every creak, every rustle outside made his hand tighten. Clara came to the doorway, wrapped in his coat. You should rest, she said softly. He shook his head. Not tonight. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Cole, if something happens to you. He turned, eyes steady. Nothing's gonna happen. You can't promise that. He exhaled slowly. You're right, I can't. But I'll damn sure try. She knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. You barely know me. Why are you risking everything? He looked down at her hand, then back at her. Because I've lost too much already. I couldn't save June, but I can save you. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't need saving, Cole. I just need someone who won't leave. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached up and brushed a tear from her cheek. Then I'll stay. For a long moment, they just sat there, the night wrapping around them like a secret they didn't want to break. But then came the sound. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Hooves. More than one. Cole stood instantly, every muscle tensing. They're here. Clara's heart raced. What do we do? Go inside. Lock the door. Stay low. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes silenced her. She ran inside as he stepped off the porch, rifle raised. The dust cloud rose first, then the riders appeared, 4 of them, Tom leading the pack, grinning wide beneath the pale moonlight. Well, look at that, Tom sneered. The farmer boy thinks he can play hero. Cole didn't move. You got one chance to ride away, Tom. Take it. Tom laughed. You think she's yours now. You think she loves you. He spat on the ground. She doesn't even know what love is. Cole's voice stayed calm. Maybe not, but she'll learn. Just not from you. Tom's grin faded. That's so. His hand went for his gun. The night cracked open with the sound of gunfire. Cole's shot was faster, cleaner. The bullet tore through Tom's arm, spinning him off his horse. The others scattered, shouting, firing blindly into the dark. Clara ducked behind the window inside, her hands trembling as she clutched the rifle he'd given her. She could see flashes of light, shadows moving fast. Her chest tightened. Then she saw Cole fall to one knee. No, she cried, running for the door. Running for the door. Bullets hissed through the air as she ran to him, ignoring his shout to stay back. One of the riders dismounted, gun raised toward her, but before he could fire, Clara lifted her rifle, aimed, and pulled the trigger. The man fell. The recoil nearly knocked her down, but Cole caught her just in time. You okay? He asked, voice rough. She nodded, shaking, tears streaming down her face. I hit him, he smirked. Told you you're a natural. By the time the dust settled, 2 of Tom's men had fled. Tom lay bleeding, his face pale with fury and disbelief. Cole walked over, standing above him. This is over. Tom spat blood. You think you can keep her? She'll leave you. They always do. Cole's eyes hardened. Not this time. Tom sneered, but his strength was gone. He slumped back into the dirt as the night swallowed him whole. Clara stood behind Cole, her hands trembling, her breath ragged. The wind was picking up again, carrying away the last of the dust and the fear. "It's over," she whispered. Cole looked back at her, tired, bleeding, but alive. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's over." But as he turned, his legs gave out. "Cole," she screamed, rushing to him, catching him before he hit the ground. He was bleeding from the shoulder, the dark stain spreading fast. "Stay with me," she begged. He tried to smile. "Ain't goin' anywhere." She tore a strip from her dress and pressed it against the wound, her hands covered in his blood. "You can't die. Not after everything." He reached up weakly, brushing her face with his fingers. "Guess 11 inches wasn't enough." She laughed through her tears. "What are you talking about?" He smiled faintly. "That fence. The distance between us. Took me too long to cross it." She shook her head, sobbing. "You already did, Cole. You crossed it the moment you saw me." His eyes softened, fading. "Then maybe I can rest now." "Don't you dare," she whispered, clutching him. "You promised me you'd stay." And for a long moment, she thought he was gone, until she felt his hand tighten weakly around hers. "Still here," he murmured. "Still got fences to fix." She laughed, relief pouring out of her like rain. The night faded into dawn. She spent the next days nursing him back, cleaning wounds, watching over him like a guardian. When he finally stood again, weak but smiling, she was there, waiting on the porch, the sun warm on her face. He joined her quietly, looking out at the horizon. The old fence line stretched far into the distance, each post standing 11 inches apart. Straight, strong, perfect. "So," she said, leaning on the railing, "what happens now?" He adjusted his hat. "Well, the land's got work. The fences need tending. And I got a woman who shoots straighter than I do." She smiled. "And if she decides to stay?" He turned to her, eyes full of the quiet kind of love that doesn't need words. "Then this old ranch might finally feel like home again." She looked out across the field. Golden, endless, free. "You know what I realized," she said softly. "What's that?" She smiled. "Love's not about the man who claims you. It's about the man who stands beside you when the world turns against you." He nodded slowly. "Reckon that's true." The wind shifted, warm and gentle now. The ghosts were gone. As the sun rose higher, Clara reached out and took his hand. "No more running," she whispered. "No more fences between us," he replied. And somewhere out beyond the horizon, where the sky met the earth, the sound of hooves faded into silence, leaving only two hearts, finally at peace, standing side by side on the land that had tried to break them, but instead brought them home. Thank you so much for watching this story till the very end. Your support means more than words can ever say. If you felt the depth of this journey, don't forget to give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Together, we'll keep bringing powerful stories to life, and your presence here makes all the difference.